I think that's good. Hello, hi, welcome back. Gonna do something a little different to what I normally do because well, there is no real normal thing I do on this channel. It's whatever I feel like because free will and whatever. But there's a lot of stuff that's been coming up on my feed recently about autism, ADHD, neurodivergence, that kind of stuff. And don't think I've ever mentioned this explicitly on the channel, but I am autistic myself, diagnosed when I was 9 years old. Still currently awaiting to be seen for ADHD and have been on the waiting list for about 5 years because that's just how fucking slow things are in this country. But yeah, in general, I just wanted to, I feel, share my perspective when it comes to a lot of this stuff, and to perhaps people who maybe aren't so familiar with the sort of inner workings and aspects of autism, ADHD, and that kind of stuff, how it can sometimes manifest in unique ways in people. Now, of course, one big caveat is everyone's experience is unique. Even in autism, everyone's going to have a distinct, unique experience and perspective when it comes to these things. So my experiences and things that I'm going to be talking about in this video do not map one-to-one with all autistic people, but I just wanted to share some unique quirks that I've found about myself and share them with all of you, for whoever cares. So here we are, 5 unique experiences / quirks of being AuDHD. So number 1 is something that if you've watched my earlier videos, you probably will have noticed this, and that is talking in circles. I have a habit of wanting to get a point across, but the exact wording I can't quite latch hold of in my head. Kind of a little subset of this is that certain words that I know perfectly well, my brain will just block access to them for some reason, right when I need them the most. And when writing books and that kind of stuff, it is quite annoying because, you know, you want to the words, the exact word, but even in just sort of talking out loud, I have a habit of basically saying the same points over and over again, and a lot of that I do kind of end up cutting out of these videos, to be honest, but sometimes it does get back in because there's a specific way I want to say something. The exact wording and phrasing that I feel best gets my idea across, and what I end up saying is only really an approximation of that, so I basically kind of circle back over and over it again while I'm trying to sort of find a way to actually, you know, say it how I want to say it, and I very rarely ever do. Hence why everything's just kind of an approximation, and in general I tend to work better with the written word, but for video formats such as this, that's not really exactly, it's not a one-to-one, and maybe that's a sign I should probably start scripting these videos, but I'm lazy, so yeah. So one example, I think, if I can point to one that I remember, so the video I did on when I went to Moniac Mall, the creative writing retreat vlog I did last year, I basically said the exact same thing 3 times in a row. The way that my mind works when I write, I cannot spew out whatever. It has to be the best that I can make it at that moment, if I'm not making it the best that I can in the moment. As long as I can make it the best that it can be in that moment. I don't know, I just wanted to really emphasize the point or something, or I was trying to think of the next thing to say and again just kept running in circles. My brain was just sort of running on fumes, as it were. It was just dangling above the pit of the equivalent of the blue screen of death, or the rainbow wheel you get on Mac, basically, in here, just while I was processing the next thing I wanted to say. Because I guess I like to be thorough, I like to be detailed and in depth, and sometimes the supply does not always reach the demand, and also basically ends up being very long-winded to say something that can be said quite concise, you know. This could have been an email, basically, the equivalent of that. So, number 2, doing tasks set for me by others before doing my own. This may be a little weird here, but I've added the caveat here of basically it's putting others' needs before my own, and this is something I picked up quite early on because this leaned a little bit more into the ADHD side of things, where you get kind of that, pathological demand avoidance, that sort of thing. But for me, when I was quite young, I learned if I don't do things people tell me to do or ask me to do, I'm going to get in trouble, and they're going to get angry or upset at me, and I don't want that. So whenever it's something somebody else has asked me to do, I will always go ahead and do it pretty quickly, on time, and to, as good of a standard as I can, really, even if it's something I'm not necessarily passionate about, is because somebody else demanded that of me, and I can't stand to disappoint other people. The issue with that is my own personal creative projects did tend to suffer somewhat. For the longest time, I was always wondering, getting frustrated with myself, is that I was doing all these assignments for when I was in school, college, university, and that kind of stuff, but the kind of stuff I wanted to do for myself, I always felt lacking in, because I never wanted to disappoint anyone apart from one person: myself. I don't give a shit about disappointing myself or, failing to meet my own demands, because I know myself deep down, and I know I can see the emotional reasoning and the leads to that or the other. Whereas if somebody else is disappointed in me, I just see the outward aspect of that, and it hurts even past the point of worrying about just getting in trouble, as you do as a kid. Like, it really gets to me about even just the idea of upsetting someone else. I really don't like that, and so I often let my own projects and desires in the past fall by the wayside. But on the brighter side of that is that somebody else asking me to do something when I'm in a bit of a creative rut with my own stuff, is that it can help me get out of that rut, as it gives me that something to focus on, to take my mind away from something. And it's usually something pretty simple, like when someone asks me to, say, prepare dinner one night, or to clean the house, some specific chores and that kind of stuff. That stuff I will always do, because again I don't like the idea of getting into trouble or upsetting people for not doing those things. But it does help with refocusing my mind when I feel overwhelmed by kind of an empty space without really much sort of structure and restraints, because as we all know, autistic people thrive on structure. Now, moving on to number 3. Living in fear that I was always doing something wrong. Basically, for a significant portion of my childhood, and it's extended into adulthood, but there were plenty of times when I was doing something, I was minding my own business, doing what I thought was the right thing, what, I'm pretty sure people were, asked me to do, or just whatever. I thought everyone was fine. And then out of nowhere, seemingly, I would get people being angry with me, seemingly out of nowhere, or being upset, or I was getting, receiving disciplinary action. And I didn't know why, because I thought I was just following instructions, or just, doing things the way I thought things were supposed to be doing. But this sort of links back to the, taking things literally and just wanting clarification for a lot of tasks that a lot of neurodivergent people need. For example, one time in college, when I had to do a research assignment, I was feeling a little lost and, felt I needed a bit of help, and so the tutor just said to, well, just go to the library and just find a book, and then, just do reading that. And so I did that, and I went to the library, I found a book, read through it, paid a lot of attention to it, really, absorbed what was in it, and I did all that. But then, later I found out that I got into trouble for doing that, but like that's what he told me to do. But yeah, you were only supposed to do it for a short time and then come back to class, but you didn't say like when or whatever. And to be honest, like, a lot of the stuff was pretty vague in terms of like timetabling anyway around that time, so it was just, I don't know what it is with neurotypicals, they just expect us all to have this weird fucking telepathy that they all seem to have, but I don't know, I just don't. And they say we are the ones with the superpowers, but no, clearly not. They don't have the power to read fucking minds. Or how one time I was back in primary school and we were in a DT class, design technology, and I was, to be fair, making a pretty sort of a mess of this piece of like felt or whatever with a piece of scissors. I can't remember what I was trying to do. I was trying to do something with it, but then all of a sudden the teacher just like grabs it and rips it out of my hands. I was like, "How dare you!" Sorry, what? What did I do? And it's just like, well, you think you could just like mess up a bit of felt just for the fun of it? I mean, to be honest, that guy was a cunt anyway, so I don't care. But the funny thing was, is that like sort of the next day he did sort of apologise to me, but then sort of caveated it, like, but that was a very good bit of felt. You were messing up quite badly, though. You understand? Like, it's a cheap bit of felt. It doesn't fucking. Alright, fuck you, Mr. Taylor. Sorry. But yeah, anyway, the general point is, yes, there's a lot of stuff in my life that I just kind of, those experiences really informed the whole thing of just the constant worry that I was always just doing something wrong. And even when everything is completely fine and I'm just like trying to, do things and do it okay, and I'm always try to make sure that I get as much clarity as possible, because not even just for my own sort of sanity in regards to that I know what I'm doing, it's just that so I can try and mitigate the risk of getting into trouble. Again, there's just so many times where I just think it was just sort of an innocent thing. I'm just trying to, do my thing, or maybe if I just, like another example, I remember I was having swimming lessons once because my dad forced my brother and I to do swimming lessons, and we, it's good exercise, of course, and it was a pretty intensive session I had that day that I just asked for, the next sort of, like exercise was coming up, and I asked if I could just take like a few seconds, just because I'm like quite, it was just quite exhausting, the last one, and then the instructor was just like, come out of the water. I was like, okay, we're fine, come up. And he comes up to me, like, it's on the shoulder, like, right now, get out and go home if you're not going to do what I'm going to tell you to do. I froze. I got back in the water, and I was like, no, I'll do it, it's fine, it's okay. Hello, Editing Alfie, just to give a little extra context to that clip. This was like a really, seemingly very out of character thing for this swim instructor. He just seemed to be kind of like a normal-ish guy, like a nice guy, and then he's sort of out of nowhere is like that, This wasn't like a typical like, drill instructor type of character. This was, he seemed to be a nice guy, so like this was a real shock. But yeah, anyway, just for added context. And I'm being very charitable with my phrasing of that, to be honest, but that's just how it felt from my perspective. Perhaps maybe it was like from the instructor's perspective that I was being a lazy git, but I didn't understand the whole, but that's just what it's informed. And, to quote Darth Vader in the subpar Obi-Wan Kenobi show, I am what you made me. Number 4. This is pretty, this is going to be a pretty funny one. The handwriting exercise debacle. I debated whether putting this an entire video on its own. This is probably going to take up a significant chunk of this video, but this is quite a funny thing that my dad and I still joke about to this day. So my handwriting is, and always has been, pretty bad. I'll just have a little example there. I mean, it's somewhat legible, but still pretty scratchy around. It is better than it was when I was a kid. My kid, it was borderline illegible, and so I and my brother who's also known for having not great handwriting, but my dad, I think, was probably the school said something about like our spelling tests were, coming back not so good because they couldn't read what we'd written, so they couldn't mark us or something, but or whatever it was. And my parents were just like, no, we need to get your handwriting in shape. And what my mind saw there was, what, you're making us do extra homework that like we don't actually need to do because it's not the school that's telling us to do it. Why would I want to do that? So I suppose going against the number 2 thing of like doing tasks set for me by others, because my dad made the fatal mistake of it being conditional. If you do these handwriting exercises, he said, then you get to play video games and whatever, and watch movies, because my brother and I would, be into games and that. We spent many hours a weekend on the Nintendo Wii, and I had my Nintendo DS as well. But I was just like, I don't want to do this. It's like, it sucks. I hate this. It's, why should I do these exercises? I hate them. I'm not going to do them. And it's like, well, then you don't get to play video games if you don't do them. So I said, well, fine then, I won't play video games. My dad did not know how to react to that. And yes, I was stubborn. I still am, but I was a stubborn little prick back then. I genuinely did not play video games for an extended period of time because I genuinely thought, like, my brain rationalized that, yeah, I would rather not have access to video games than be forced to do these handwriting exercises. And my poor dad was at a complete loss. My brother did them, and he, did his thing, and he was fine. And his handwriting's still shit, so I guess those exercises didn't really matter anyway. But yeah, it was. Yeah, I suppose he did soften it in later years, saying that you could write. I think you could do it on the weekends or something, or whatever. And he changed it to, like, if you do your homework, then you get to play video games and do stuff. So it was quite funny because I guess kind of my brain rationalized it. This is sort of, I guess, more on the ADHD side where, even simple tasks get registered as painful and unpleasant, even if they, from an outsider's perspective, they aren't, and like in any reasonable circumstance they are, but that's how the brain recognizes it. Yeah, I genuinely thought that was a worthwhile trade, and yeah, I stuck to that for the longest time. And looking back, I can say, like, yeah, I probably should have just done what my dad said, but, that's how it was. That's just, it is what it is. Number 5. And this is kind of going meta with this one. Feeling the need to round off lists to a rounded number. I just, dividing things equally into like 5s and 10s and that's just how my brain works, logically. And I came up with 4 things, and I just felt I needed a 5th one. Like, there has to be a 5th one. I can't just leave it at 4. So I went meta with it. Because it has to be even. It has to be good. But, yeah, maybe it's my perfectionist streak going through with that one, but that's just how the brain works sometimes. But anyway, that's the list I've got at the moment. If I come up with any more like unique things I can speak on with this, I might do another one of these videos or do more on my experience on these sorts of things, as I feel that can be a good, talking about stuff and processing through things and helping people understand, or whatever it may be. But yeah, I think this could potentially be a new little avenue for the channel if you're interested, or, well, it doesn't matter if you're interested. I make the videos I want to make, because screw you. I hope this was interesting or enlightening, or fun little stories here and there, but regardless, thank you for watching, have a lovely day, and au revoir.